So for today's presentation, I'll begin with an overview of the basic workflow, how and why log files are useful for plan comparisons, in particular the Fluence comparison, which is useful for the pass-fail criteria based on gamma analysis for patient-specific QA. I'll show some examples of specific plan Fluence analysis. Then I will discuss a few recent publications comparing log files versus detector arrays. Finally, I'll review some of the new features in recent releases and then summarize. So here is the basic information flow for LinacView. Everything begins right here at workstation number 1, the treatment planning system. And so, of course, there your plan is generated, and one needs to export both, of course, through the Linac as well as to a particular folder that is monitored by LinacView. And so in this workflow, the LinacView computer is always monitoring what's coming from the treatment planning computer, and as well it's always monitoring what is coming from the Linac. And so for any plan that the LinacView computer has already picked up, as soon as that plan is delivered, the analysis automatically begins. And I'd like to go ahead and show you a little bit of the software right now. And the place that we're starting in this workflow is we're assuming that the RTPlan has been exported. The LinacView computer has picked it up. And so far that day, one plan, 5 days worth of plans are being shown in the dashboard. And what I'm showing you right now is the LinacView batch dashboard. And what you see here is that there were 5 different days sessions that were actually just sent today, because this is, of course, a simulator that I'm using, but 5 consecutive days sessions. It shows the Linac and the department, as well as information about the particular plan, and then the particular analysis template that's being used. This one in particular is just using the default template, and then I'll go ahead and send now. We'll pretend that the Linac just treated another patient, so the session has been retrieved. And if you can hear, there had been an alert generated. I'm not sure if that comes through to those listening, or I just hear it on my computer, but I just got an alert. You can see that an email was also sent. And that's the length of time that it takes for the analysis to occur. You can see here that for the previous sessions that were delivered, an auto RTPlan was exported. The particular Linac that the log files were just sent to does not have that option turned on. And so let me go ahead and tell you a little bit about the auto plan portion. And so if you have it set up, and you can turn it on or off. When we first released auto RTPlan, it just auto exported all the plans, and as we listened to our customers, there was desire to have that be turned on or off, and some selection for how that is done. And so you can choose which patients you would like to auto export, and then of course you can go ahead and pick up those plans that are generated with each session and compute those in, say, back in your treatment planning computer, or using an independent dose calculation engine. So that is the complete workflow. And this, of course, if I can grab it and pull it back, is the software itself. And this batch dashboard is something that one would just leave open, for example, in dosimetry, where someone could hear the alerts, or you could just depend on emails being sent. And then other users have this software running in the treatment console area. And there's pretty limited information given. You can hover over as I'm showing and see what the alerts are coming from for this one in particular. You can see that there's a monitor unit RMS error. And so later on, I'm going to log in as a user with more credentials so that I can go ahead and show you later what additional information that you can look for inside of LinacView if you'd like to go in and explore your alerts for failures in more detail. But as long as you're getting all pass rates based on your specific criteria that you customize for your clinic, you can just look at the reports once the entire session is complete. So I wanted to just go into a bit of background next concerning log files. So log files were initially generated for use by the Linac engineers, and they will report, the specific parameters from the monitor unit chamber, MLC positioning, etc., that the Linac is looking for its feedback, so it will know when it's out of tolerance and beam will go off. So then you ask, what is the use of log files? Well, some of these tolerances might be a little larger than you would desire and may actually have some dosimetric impact. For example, MLC positioning tolerance may be before the beam will go off, may be as large as 3 millimeters. And, if that's for a very short period of time, during the plan for a limited number of leaves, that's not going to carry a lot of dosimetric impact. But if it's for multiple leaves for a large portion of the plan, then you are going to see dosimetric impact. And so it's a great tool and provides some real interesting information, and hopefully I'll be able to share that with you a bit later. I also wanted to next mention that, of course, with the different Linacs, there are different types of log files. If you hear those terms, DynaLog Files, trajectory log files, both from Varian and Electa, we actually use their ICOM VX interface because we cannot access the TRF log files in real time. Those are only exportable manually after treatment. And this is a fully automated system, so that doesn't fit into the workflow. And of course, these are sampled at different rates. And so I'll go ahead and start. Well, first I'll go over what types of parameters are we monitoring. So just like, in the RTPlan, all those same parameters are monitored in the log files. Things such as jaw positions, carriage positions, MLC leaf positions, the gantry collimator and fraction of total MU. And we use basically these two components to determine the delivered fluence. And then we have alerts for additional parameters. And so it's important, as you can ascertain, that we are able to map the log file records as a function of time to the RTPlan control points. And I wanted to go into a little bit more detail about the RTPlan control points as well as the log file records. And a few other things to think about, some assumptions that the leaves are moving uniformly between control points, because in the plan, the only positions that the computation is being specified is at those control points. And so, are the leaves really moving uniformly between those control points or not? And then, of course, that the dose rate is linear between control points as well. So there are assumptions that are made between the control points. And the log files typically contain more information than does the plan. And so then you have to make some decisions about how much of that information you want to keep. If you want to keep the same number of control points as the original plan, all the information from the log files, which is pretty large, and some systems have trouble importing that. And we have tools within LinacView to help you select what is appropriate, and we'll show you the dosimetric impact through the Fluence and gamma comparisons to determine what number is of control points to create your RTPlan, if that's something you want to do, is appropriate for your plan. And so this is a sample log file specification for a DynaLog file. And it just specifies what is actually in each record. And so you can see, of course, jaw positions, carriage positions, actual and expected MLC leaf positions. And so it's all, of course, well-defined. And then this is kind of what the file will look like. Each of these corresponding to the definitions on the previous slide. And, just to make sure you understand what you're looking at. So every row in this column is the information that's collected every 15 milliseconds. And there is actually no explicit mapping to control points from the plan. And so we have to go in and we have to figure out that mapping by going through looking at the dose fraction, the prescription dose here. And then, for example, looking at this particular row, the dose fraction is 2198. If we scroll to the bottom, it goes to 25,000. So just taking the fraction there and multiplying by the MUs, and you come up with 13.2 MUs so that you could do the mapping. The newer variant log files, the trajectory log files, do have a direct fractional control point column. And you can see in this column that down here at the bottom, we have 0.13, so 0.13 out of a total of 1. Being the complete delivery of your plan is typically 1. And each of these rows is 20 milliseconds worth of the delivery. You can see your jaw positions, couch positions, and leaf expected and actual. So just a little peek into trajectory log files. And then just to have some information about how that is mapped back to your RTPlan from your treatment planning system. This is just a quick look at control point 1. You see that the X and Y jaw positions are specified along with the MLC positions. The gantry angle is 181 degrees. The collimator angle of 30 degrees. And then the couch information is specified as well. These are familiar parameters outlined in the log files. And so next, let's just go ahead and take a look at a couple of other control points. So control points 88, 89, and 178 is next. So you see that with the subsequent control points, there are less parameters specified, and that is because if a parameter is repeated, most treatment planning systems, I won't say all, and so then do not repeat values that are unchanged. So you can see here that the gantry angle moves clockwise from 358 to just over 1 degree, from control point 88 to 89. And the fractional increase in MU is also shown increasing from 0.497 to 0.502. And finally, at the last control point, the fraction cumulative meter set weight is 1, and our gantry angle is at 179. So that's just a quick peek into an RTPlan to learn a bit about control points. And I hope that helped give you some insight into how the RTPlan and the log files are linked. And this linking allows us to do the analysis in LinacView and make some comparisons that are clinically relevant, because we generate a Fluence map based on the RTPlan, and then we go ahead and generate a Fluence map based on each daily delivery, as well as composite for the entire treatment for the patient. And you can review both of those. And then, of course, we generate a gamma comparison. These Fluence maps are created by projecting the MU-weighted segments to the isocenter plane. And in this particular example, we have a gamma pass rate of 99.7%. And, good results typically are not surprising with this sort of analysis, because, the comparison is as fine as needed. We have no finite space detector grids to worry about, no setup uncertainties. And so it's really quite sensitive to finding errors. But there are, of course, cases where errors do occur, and you want to have the tools to go in and find out what is going on with your plan. So with that, I'll go ahead and bring the software up again. This alert is merely telling me that I'm not connected to my Linac, which of course is no surprise because I do not have a Linac here where I'm doing my demo. I'm going to go ahead and with my simulator deliver another session, and it will come into the LinacView software. If you notice, you're seeing another column now, which is showing a failure. And the reason for that is that I'm in as the admin now, and you can see that there are all the parameters that LinacView tracks being presented in this particular column. And you can see that there was I saw one failure. Let's see, we have leaf banks, AB 95th percentile is having a failure along with some other leaf bank errors. But then for the actual pass-fail that we are using to send email alerts, we are monitoring less parameters. And so these, the clinic has determined, are not going to be used for their clinical analysis. And so you can see that this session that I had sent in to the Linac just a few seconds ago has gone ahead. It's gone through its analysis. It took just a few moments longer to analyze because the complete RTPlan was generated based upon all of the log file information. So that's a little more time consuming. And you can see here that the Fluence comparison is what has failed. And I'd like to go ahead and load these sessions so that we can take a look at some of the problem-solving capabilities that LinacView has. And so the particular case, I'll talk about it for just a few moments, is a head and neck case. It had a very low modulation complexity score, and in particular, a modulation complexity score of 0.074. Those of you that don't use this metric to review your plans often, a value of 0 is the most complex. Value of 1 is a simple plan. So 0.074 is really up there. And so we're expecting that perhaps the delivery is going to be pretty complex and difficult for the LINAC to deliver, particularly if it's an older model and maybe the leaves are not moving quite as quickly as they did, or that you could see that there could potentially be more issues in the delivery. I wanted to bring up quickly, because I don't think I mentioned it earlier, that not in the most recent release, but the one before, release 3.12, we did introduce a feature into LinacView where if you keep your LinacView computer in dosimetry, as soon as the planning is done, there doesn't have to be an auto export, but the dosimetrist can manually import into LinacView to check the modulation complexity score. And there are clinics that are basing whether or not that plan should leave dosimetry on the modulation complexity score. So they might say everything with a modulation complexity score lower than 0.15, just go ahead and replan. Or, for example, if the plan has a modulation complexity score of 0.2 or below, go ahead and flag it for the physicist to make sure they do some measurements a day or two, a couple of days ahead of when the patient is scheduled for their first treatment, so that they have time to go back and go through the process again. But it's a great way to find plans that may have QA issues very early in the process, so it doesn't go all the way through the process. So sorry for that distraction there, and let me see if I can pull LinacView back over. So here is some of the information if you want to go in and look at a failed plan, some of the tools you have to find out what's going on with your LINAC. And so you see everything's color-coded with green for passing, red for failing, and then this orangish color. I don't see any of the parameters actually in orange for an alert. And so you can see the problem lies over here with the leaf movement. The monitor units look great. And as well, the tabs for each of these are color-coded up top as well. And the tabs are color-coded for the items that the plan pass-fail alert is being produced in that first patch dashboard that I showed early in the session. And so if you click on the Fluence versus plan, you can see the gamma map. Everything that is in gray is a passing value, and you can see values above 1 are in yellow and the higher ones are in red. So you can see we have a section of gamma failure in this region of the plan. We have the DBH gamma index value versus percent of Fluence comparison pixels. So you can see we have a grouping up here with the gamma values above 1. The gamma pass portion is 92.9%. And then the mean gamma also fails at 0.408. So we can go ahead and scroll on down. And on the left, you can see the planned Fluence map. On the right, the log file delivered Fluence and the absolute Fluence deviations. The other fun thing to look at is the leaf page, and here you can get all kinds of information about which leaves are having issues. You can go through and select any of the leaves and see how they're performing as a function of RTPlan control point versus the leaf position deviation. So what you're seeing is in the purplish color, that's a bank B leaf, and those are, let's see, we have our alert set for 1.5 millimeters. So these particular control points show deviations of greater than 1.5 millimeters. We don't see any, at least for this particular leaf, going above 2.5 millimeters, plus or minus 2.5 are your failures. We could go ahead and look at a couple of other leaf values just to see what this plan's looking like. We also have the bank A and B RMS errors and maximums, and just a lot of good information. The most interesting one, I think, is the dynamic view, and I'll go ahead and start this for you. And what you see here is the on the left, is the plan playing, and then the leaves are in pass, alert, and fail. So if you see a leaf showing up with this orangish tan color or a red failure, you know that for that particular delivery, there is a problem with the leaves. Over here in the right, what you see is the gamma, the 2D gamma comparison at 2% 2 millimeter with a cutoff of 5%. And when this open region, when the segment is colored as it is here, you have a gamma failure region. And if you cursor over here, you can actually see how far off your leaves are, showing if they're too open, too closed. And let me zoom in a bit, and with the color coding, you can get a good view of the variation in your plan delivery. So it's some kind of nice tools. You can, we have a lot of different options. So I just wanted to show you what sort of tools LinacView provides. But primarily, I would say that users rely on that dashboard, very rarely see failures, but just know that when you do get an alert on that first basic dashboard that I showed at the beginning of the webinar, then you have tools to go in and find out what your problem is. So I know I'm running a little bit long. So I'll skip through going into details about recent publications. There are some nice ones out here by Memorial Sloan Kettering. If you're going to be attending AAPM, there's a poster that you should check out, Clinical Implementation of Log File-Based Patient-Specific QA. This is by the group at Mays Cancer Center, MD Anderson in San Antonio. This particular study compared 54 VMAT patient plans, a Delta 4 was used for measurements, and this clinic is using the research treatment planning system, which was new for LinacView, so we had to go in and make a few adjustments for them and help them out with a few things. And so far, in general, the LinacView log files were able to predict that a VMAT beam would pass the patient-specific QA criteria when measured with the Delta 4 Phantom at a rate of 85%. And they have more comparisons in progress as well. If you're a little hesitant about log files, there are some publications out there telling you how to do some quality assurance for your validation of your log files, so you can be ensured that you can trust the value. And I have spoken on other webinars about the patient-specific QA work at Memorial Sloan Kettering. please reach out if you'd like to hear more details about that. But just to close, I wanted to mention a few new things in LinacView. I did go into some detail about the modulation complexity score plan check that LinacView has been providing since version 3.12. So you can check your plans early in the process. In version 3.13, we have numerous improvements. I've listed a couple here. Improved reading of the icon VX data stream for the elected Linux, just picking up a few extra parameters. We are also doing some control point interpolation for RTPlan generation, and that's optional. Some people have expressed an interest in having that interpolation occur, so you can turn it on or off, and improving the keyword definitions a bit, because I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but there is automatic association. Say if you wanted to have different analysis for a head and neck versus a prostate, you can use keywords based on the plan name or based on two different DICOM tags, and we have made those keywords a little more forgiving. So that's for easier automatic association, and just numerous other improvements. And so in summary, I hope that I've convinced you that there's a wealth of information available for analysis within your log files. The LinacView software maps the RTPlan control points to the log file data. Gamma analysis of the Fluence occurs so that you can compare the plan versus delivered. Comprehensive analysis tools are available, and log file analysis is more sensitive in detecting errors compared to detector arrays and allows for higher QA throughput.